Thank you so much, and thank you all for attending. This may be the biggest group we've ever had at our reception, so thank you all. We're going to be moving into the program, and what Doug Gober and I have worked out is that one way or another, we're out of here a few minutes before 7 p.m. And so we'll do whatever it takes to make that happen. So if you do your best to give us the attention, we're so pleased to be honoring him. But I have a few just that I wanted to recognize. And in some cases, I'm not sure for certain whether they're in the room or not. But I'm going to go through. Well, let's see. I'll start with our executive director, Nadira. I'm certain you're here. Raise your hand. Oh, she's there. Round of applause. What a great job she does. Gary Freitag is president of ICCFA. Yep. Christine Pepper, I think, is attending, executive director of NFDA. Barbara Chemis. I know Barbara's here. She's the executive director of CANA. Robbie Poppy, she's the president-elect of ICCFA. I hope I said Gary Freitag. He's our current president. Not for long. It's been 2 years. Caressa Hughes is president of CANA. Caressa? Lisa Bowie, she's chair of the Funeral Service Foundation. And if we have other previous winners of the Lasting Impact Award besides Gary O'Sullivan, Gary, I think Gary's here. Last year's winner was Glenda Stansberry. Thank you. Thank you all for attending. And last but not least, I think he's probably around in the back of the room, is chairman-elect of the Education Foundation, and that's Gino Mirandino. And he's an incredibly talented and capable person, and I look forward to serving on the board and supporting him, and hopefully I don't get in the way. But he will end up having this position and be at this stage, in Tampa, Florida next year. So, Gino, thank you for all you do. Before we get into the video, more of the life story of Doug Gober, I shared with Doug, and I've shared with many of you over the last couple of months or so, but I told Doug maybe 2 months ago, I think 2 or 3 months ago, I said, hey, I just want to tell you something. I said, you will never spend so much time and money being honored. And the truth of it is, talking with Chris Kruger, he said, no, I haven't seen him for 2 months. He's been working on this stuff. So he has not seen this video that we'll be playing tonight. But what I can share with you is simply this. You'll learn, there are many of you that know different segments and all of his life. And I'm pretty sure I've known him over 30 years. And so some of it I already knew. But there's all kinds of, I guess, things that are going to be revealed in here that I'm not even sure his family knows. So it should be interesting. Hopefully we have security close by, so any kind of challenges that we might have. Yeah, bail would be good. I'm going to show you in just a moment a PSA that we're doing, the Funeral Service Foundation, the ICCFA Education Foundation is doing although we have some plans on how we might be able to get other associations involved in it. And it's the National Alliance of Children's Grief. Unbelievable organization that has 1,500 501c3 members that are in communities like yours and where you live. And it's been an area that, quite honestly, that we need to do more in, I think. And it's about children and grief. And so the public service announcement I'm going to show you, it's going to be available in 60 seconds, 30 seconds, 15, and in English and Spanish. But we'll play it. And I'm in hopes that what you see is you'll see that it's something that you might want to use in your own social media as a member of ICCFA, that you are able to share and just make the point that you understand it and you're being supportive of it. So we'll play this 60 second and then we'll get on to, I guess, a little more fun things.
One in 13 children, like me, will have a parent, brother, or sister die. Grief is hard, so we need the support of people who care about us today and as we grow. We don't want to grieve alone. We want to share our story with others. If you're helping someone like me, the National Alliance for Children's Grief is there for you. They are committed to a world where no child grieves alone and invite you to join them in making it a reality. Learn more about what they do and find ways to help kids like me at nacg.org.
Children should never have to grieve alone. And I think we want to continue that message and throughout funeral service. Okay, now it's time to honor Doug Gober. So let's take a look at this video.
The 2023 Lasting Impact Awards. Reception sponsors. The ICCFA Educational Foundation's Lasting Impact Award was created to recognize individuals who have made significant contributions to furthering professional development and lifelong learning in the funeral, cemetery, and cremation profession. Those that know Doug Gober may wonder just who he is. Ask anyone that has known Doug for a while, and you'll likely hear words like humble, driven, innovator, passionate, forward-thinking, mentor, kind. And the list goes on and on. Doug Gober was born at the Naval Air Base in Bermuda, where his parents were stationed. At 6 months old, the family returned to the west side of Birmingham, Alabama, which was mostly known at that time for its steel mills, iron ore, and coal mines.
Words cannot express my gratitude for Doug. He worked tirelessly for months to help us obtain the financing we needed to purchase our funeral homes. He was instrumental in helping us achieve this life-changing dream we had. I will never be able to thank him enough. Doug will always be considered a dear friend and has truly made a lasting impact on myself and my family.
After his military duty, Doug's dad and family members formed a small construction company mainly focused on creating steel frames for large buildings. His mother, Peggy, became the chief court clerk of probate court in Jefferson County, Alabama. About where he grew up, Doug would say, "We were on the wrong side of the tracks in Birmingham, but I sure didn't know it. Most of my friends' parents worked in either the steel mills, the mines, or one of the businesses that supported them."
Doug has made a lasting impact on me from the time I first heard him speak 25 years ago. His ability to use his experience to weave an unforgettable story is one of a kind. I've used his stories to shape my funeral service career over the years, and in doing so, have formed a great friendship with Doug. Kelly once asked me if I thought all the stories were true, and I replied, "Who cares? They're great stories." Congratulations, Doug, on a well-deserved honor.
Doug is the eldest of 3 boys and recalls, "When I reflect on my childhood, I have mostly fond memories. We didn't have much but woods and fields, but I never wanted for anything."
Doug Gober has been a funeral service icon and educator for really the past 40 years. His vision, message, and influence has helped move the profession forward multiple times. His impact is unparalleled. All of us in funeral service are better because of Doug.
Gober's first job was pumping gas, followed by being employed as a nursing assistant in a small hospital close to his school. He worked nights and weekends while finishing high school and all the way through college at the University of Alabama.
For over 10 years, Doug has been so important in our lives. His wisdom and guidance are a large part of our success. Doug, as Alabama natives, we share an extra close bond of friendship. Roll Tide and War Eagle.
During his second year at Alabama, one of his closest friends, Donnie Robbins, who was 2 years younger than Doug, was killed in a tragic accident 2 days after committing to a football scholarship with Auburn. It was his first experience with being involved in the planning of a funeral. Doug sang and participated in the service. Doug was only 19.
In my view, the greatest impact Doug has made on the profession is his ability to never say no. If asked to finance, sell, or merchandise a business, preach a funeral, speak on any topic, or assemble a band, the answer is always yes.
Just before graduation, Doug left his job at the hospital to begin his accounting career with a successful CPA firm in Birmingham. However, it wasn't very long after that when Doug realized he wasn't going to remain a CPA very long.
He's no wallflower and he loves a microphone, and that's been to the benefit of our profession and the families we serve. The lasting impact of Doug Gober is from decades of educational seminars sharing observations of best practices to adopt and worst practices to avoid.
In his search for something different, and by a fantastic coincidence, he was approached by Batesville Casket Company as one of his many options. Doug had no intentions of traveling or leaving Birmingham, but accepted a sales position with Batesville, moving his family to Oxford, Mississippi. Doug reflects, "Little did I know where that decision would leave me over the next 40-plus years. Any success that happened later in my work in funeral service would have never occurred without the foundation established by Mike DeBeese and Batesville Casket."
There are 2 levels of Doug Gober for me. On a professional level, he is one of my go-to guys in our profession. Whenever I need anything, he is always there for me. He is so knowledgeable and knows everyone. On a personal level, I know when I see Doug, he will have a smile on his face. In fact, he makes me smile instantaneously. He is so funny and is one of my favorite gingers. Congratulations, Doug.
Because he was an anomaly, a CPA selling caskets, Gober was consistently called upon by the company and other Batesville representatives for assistance with other projects. In the fall of 1987, Doug was introduced to a consultant by the name of Alton Duty, who had been hired by Batesville. Duty was a marketing guru who had no experience in funeral service, but had worldwide recognition as an accomplished marketing and merchandising expert. While still at Batesville, Gober was recruited by Duty, along with 3 other Batesville employees, to evaluate the financial results of existing casket selection rooms and the manner in which funeral products are offered to consumers.
I worked with Doug for almost 10 years at Live Oak Bank and consider him a great friend. Doug cares deeply about work, his family, God, music, and those fortunate enough to call him a friend. When you go to an industry conference with Doug, you must prepare yourself to be stopped by someone every 2 feet who wants to speak and hug Doug. He's one of a kind. I respect and admire him.
Doug's territory and a few other installations around the country became a live lab for these prototype approaches. This program was introduced through Batesville reps and a series of seminars conducted on a nationwide basis, led by Duty, Gober, and their team. Eventually, there were hundreds of funeral homes in the U.S. that implemented the system. Through these years, Duty and Gober became close friends as well as business associates.
If it wasn't for Doug Gober, we wouldn't own our 11 funeral homes and cemetery today. But Doug's relentless perseverance resulted in our dream becoming a reality. Doug is a tremendous person in so many ways. Not only is he highly intelligent and knows the funeral profession extremely well, but he has an amazing sense of humor. He never ceases to make me laugh. Doug is also a man of great integrity, faith, and exceptional core values. There's no doubt that Doug deserves this award, and I'm honored to call him my friend.
In 1995, Duty approached Gober to join him in his consulting, architecture, and design business based in New Orleans. Their initial work involved reinventing merchandise and facilities for over 2,000 funeral homes located in both the UK and France for SCI. This initiative was led by Jerry Pullins, along with a significant team which included a young business development associate named Chris Kruger.
Over the course of your career with Batesville, the Duty Group, Live Oak Bank, and Forsyth Consulting, you have met, interacted with, and provided advice and service to more people in the funeral, cremation, and cemetery industries than perhaps anyone else in the profession. I've been amazed many times when we meet on the convention floor and you know every person who passes by. Not only the funeral directors, suppliers, and cemeterians, but their spouses, kids, and even their pets by their first name. Throughout your long career, you have given much to the industries under the ICCFA umbrella. You're a true road warrior, speaking annually at numerous state and national meetings and visiting clients throughout the U.S. 48 or 50 weeks each year. I can think of no one who has given of himself to our industry or deserves this award more. Congratulations, Doug.
In addition to his success in Mississippi and Arkansas with Batesville, Gober was being recognized as a skilled communicator. This eventually led to his participation in Batesville events as a speaker, as well as presenting at state conventions across the South. After their work in Europe, Duty and Gober proposed their created merchandising ideas to all major casket suppliers in the U.S. market. The York Group accepted the challenge of these new ideas and eventually bought their company.
As I gave thought to the many qualities of Doug, the one that continued to come to top of mind to me, it is mentorship. True leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. Relevant expertise and knowledge, enthusiasm for sharing that expertise, eagerness in investing in others, reflective listening and empathy. Doug exemplifies all of these wonderful qualities.
In the span of over 25 years, Gober's position as an innovator, presenter, and communicator of all things funeral dramatically grew to international status. His straightforward approach to obvious challenges and opportunities in the business of funeral and cemetery service created a demand for his talents. In 1999, while with the York Group, Paul Seiler, Calvin Toller, and Gober performed over 40 two-day seminars to promote a new approach to serving the consumer with funeral merchandise and services in one 52-week year.
After nearly 20 years at Batesville, Doug and I teamed up with Alton Duty and traveled the country delivering 1- and 2-day YMS seminars 30 weeks a year for nearly 10 years. We saw more of each other than our wives. At times, it felt like a death march, but it was Doug's love of funeral service and enthusiasm for the business that kept me going. This recognition is well-deserved, but remember, dog years are 7 to 1, and Doug years are 10 to 1. He's my forever friend.
Since the mid-1980s, Gober has performed over 600 presentations in the United States and 14 foreign countries. He has been the keynote speaker at the ICCFA National Convention. He has also been a fixture at the ICCFA University, Dead Talks, and multiple other national events. His high-energy presentations are well known, springing from his feeling that people are more convinced by the height of your emotion than the depth of your logic.
I met Doug 25 years ago when we were part of a team taking a bandsaw to perfectly good caskets to hang them on the wall. Since then, I've seen him carve up many of the other sacred assumptions in funeral service. including copper caskets, cremation cheapskates, and the way capital flows into the industry. The common thread running through all of this creative destruction is Doug helping our industry get out of its own way, helping our people learn to be more productive, more profitable, and better aligned with what families really need. No one has done it better.
His opinions are largely based on fact, but driven by a love for the people and the business he has chosen as his life's work. His career path included work with Batesville, the Duty Group, the York Group, Matthews International, Carriage Services, Live Oak Bank, Gober Strategic Capital, and now as a partner with Chris Kruger in the Foresight Companies.
I've known Doug for over 25 years. I'm humbled to call him my partner, and I know of no other more deserving of this award and your recognition than Doug.
Those who know Doug know there has been one constant, consistent, overriding message throughout his illustrious career. Funeral service is important to society, and those that provide it are true servants of the people. 40 years from now, after most of us are gone, someone will be caring for our dead in North America. The only real question is, who will be doing it, and what will they be doing? Anything I have done or said through the years was to try to help us all just be a little better every day. I've been truly blessed. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in honoring and congratulating Doug Gober, recipient of the 2023 Lasting Impact Award.
Wow. Yeah, thanks. Oh my goodness, and I'm supposed to talk after that. Jim, thank you. And thanks to the ICCFA Education Foundation as well. When an organization with the quality of membership of this group even considers you, it's very remarkable. I'm incredibly honored and humbled for this very unexpected recognition. Thanks to all of you as well for being here on this special night for me and my family who are seated here and here. Everyone at these front tables had a hand in this. Let me begin by introducing my family who are with us here this evening. You guys can stand up if you want when I call your name. This is my brother Keith from Fort Worth, Texas. This is my brother Ty and his wife Monica from Birmingham, Alabama. My son Shannon from Trussville, Alabama. His wife Shauna and our grandson Ari could not be here tonight because of work and school obligations. My son David and his wife Kate, along with our three grandsons, Landry, Kellen, and Barrett. Sorry, I got those in the wrong order. There they are. They're from Houston, Texas. My daughter Kara from Oxford, Mississippi. My daughter Anna Ray, along with our only granddaughter, Harper Page, from Brandon, Mississippi. And my son-in-law Jeremy could also not be here tonight because of work obligations. My wife Victoria, who many of you know. Stand up for just a second, babe. Just stand up. Many of you know Vicki as an icon on the music and entertainment scene at Pat O'Brien's in New Orleans. But any of you know, and you can see now that Vicki know her, as she's a small woman. She should be much larger, because after 26 years with me, her skin should be about this thick. None of this happens without Vicki. I'm a blessed man to have her with me on this journey. I think possibly the most humbling thing about this award for me is the response from my family. Their excitement and support, not only for being here tonight, but the things they said. These people on these two tables just exude love. It just seeps out of their pores. If all of us had families like mine and Vicky's, the world would simply be a happier place. Are we perfect? Of course not. But we're close enough for me. So here I am. After some personal and professional reflection that's forced on you by doing these kinds of things. Are you just going to stay there the whole time?
Yeah.
All right.
I know when this ends.
So here I am after some personal and professional reflection delivering my...
Keep it short.
All right. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with you. Here I am delivering my own eulogy, as my friend Ernie Hefner described his experience in this position a few years back. I'm a little bit like a first-year PGA Tour pro who caught lightning in a bottle and won the U.S. Open, and then saw his name carved on the trophy next to all the greats in the business. Stansberry, Bedecker, Hefner, Flynn, Scruggs, Darby, Warmby, O'Sullivan, and Van Beck are all folks that I admire and could barely carry their briefcases. It's an overwhelming sense of joy just to be named with them in the same sentence, so we have to do this quickly before ICCFA catches on. Occasionally, people have reminded me how lucky I am, and they would be correct. My response is always the same, though. Yep, I'm lucky I'm not lazy. Some people describe me as a minister of funeral service. Well, I can affirmatively say that I do believe that God exists. I do believe that Jesus is real, and I believe in life after death. However, I also firmly believe in life after birth. I can't imagine any professional road more fulfilling than being an immersed observer of a business like this for the last 44 years. I'm really the Forrest Gump of funeral service. I'm not the smartest guy in this business, but my life's experiences have been deep and wide and exhilarating. Born in the South, physically challenged, met Bear Bryant, met presidents of the industry, helped create stuff used internationally, and attended and participated in some of the most interesting, inspiring events that have occurred in funeral service in the last half century. I recognize now, looking back, that there are 6 events that shaped the course of my professional life. I'm confident there'll be more to come. I've heard it said that the great focal points in people's lives are when opportunity and preparedness meet. You can call it serendipity, you can call it divine intervention, call it happenstance, or call it a blessing. What I know is these events happened to me and prepared me for the remainder of my career in this business. I want to share these 6 things with you now. The first, I was 17 years old. I'm not sure everybody in the front 2 tables even knows all these things. You were right. I was 17 years old, a senior in high school, working my way through as a nursing assistant on the graveyard shift in a small hospital. We had an emergency room, but it was unmanned unless someone came in with an emergency. It was where I went to hide, when it was quiet and maybe get 30 minutes of sleep. I was exhausted on this particular occasion, and I'm guessing it was just about dawn when the outside door flew open and 2 people came screaming, this loudest shrieking scream I've ever heard, and I can still hear it right now, and dropped a dead baby right in my lap. I still remember right now the screams of that mother saying, "Do something!" And I was helpless. After working in hospitals all the way through college, walking to an embalming room for the first time was not a problem. I've had my lunch in an embalming room. The second event was shared earlier on the video when my dear friend Donnie Robbins was tragically killed when I was 19. I was 23 when the third event occurred, when an older partner in the CPA firm where I was working called me into his office for a conference. It was wonderful for a while. He began by expressing how happy they were with my work and my progress. The conversation took a quick turn when he suggested that I was having too much fun with our clients. He said to me, words I'll never forget, "Doug, we're not sure you fit our mold here." I looked him directly in the eye and said, "Thank God I don't, and you will never see me again." To this day, I have never seen him or any of the 25 employees and partners of that firm ever again. Now, I don't necessarily recommend this for the 23-year-olds in the room, but this led me to you. My fourth event was related to my abrupt departure from the CPAs. I began randomly interviewing for jobs. A fraternity brother's girlfriend worked for a personnel agency and knew I was looking. She set me up to interview with this guy from a casket company. It was a big joke. But I went for the visit to attempt to continue honing my interview skills. With no resume, nothing but my name, I had a 2-hour visit with a guy from Batesville Casket Company. He was pleasant. We had a great visit. I never expected to hear from him again. During the 2-hour window, this is how God works. In the 2-hour window that I was talking to the guy from Batesville Casket, my grandfather suddenly died. This was before cell phones, of course, but it was in less than 48 hours I found myself at the community funeral home our family used. The funeral director was a high school buddy of my dad named Whit Miles. My family's small construction company had actually built the funeral home. Mr. Miles found out that I had interviewed with Batesville and insisted that I follow up should they ever call me back. 3 months later, they did, and I accepted a position in North Mississippi with them. I had already accepted other jobs since then and would have never even returned the call from Mike DeBeese had a man I trusted, Whit Miles, not insisted for me to respond. DeBeese really doesn't get the credit or the blame, depending on your perspective, that he deserves for my modicum of success in this business. Mike taught me all I knew at that time about casket merchandising. I knew early on that this was going to be an interesting gig I was jumping into when I took over North Mississippi from the only Batesville rep they had ever had. He was still around, just cutting back. So he traveled with me to introduce me to my new clients. On every occasion, he introduced me to my new customers by saying these exact words: "This is the little red-headed SOB that's taking my territory away from me." The fifth event of the 6 occurred in Oxford, Mississippi, somewhere around 1985. A friend of my family, this one's hard. A friend of my family was a single mom with 3 kids that were the same ages of my 3 youngest children. She was diagnosed with terminal ovarian cancer. She had come into the local funeral home to make her own prearrangements. The funeral director and I both knew Susie. As she was finalizing her prearrangement, I happened to stop by the funeral home and noticed the 2 of them just sitting in Bob's office. So I just went right into the office and sat down with them. Susie was already beginning to show signs of the disease. I assumed why she was there, and I was right. We were all close enough that I asked her what she had planned for her own services. And she had it all figured out. She had specific things with music. She had something special for each of her little kids to do. And then I asked her, we knew her well enough that I could just ask her the question. I said, Susie, why did you buy what you bought? And she said something I'll never forget. She said, I walked in that room and saw those things with their mouths open waiting for me, and I bought the first one I could see, and I got the hell out of there. I have spent a lot of my time for years after that trying to solve my friend Susie's problem. She died 8 months later. One last event. At least 14 years into my job with Batesville, I was now working in a larger territory in Arkansas. My cohort for Batesville in the state was ill, and I was helping him with some follow-up calls in northwestern Arkansas, which was not my territory, not part of my territory. I met a man named Charlie Farmer, who owned Cisco Funeral Chapel in Springdale, Arkansas. I stopped by to visit with Charlie, and they were obviously busy with a funeral. I started to drop off my card with the sweet lady out front when she said that Charlie wanted to see me, and if I showed up during funeral time, for me to just have a seat towards the back of the chapel, and he would see me when he was done. I eased into a chapel full of folks to the last seat in the last row on the center aisle. It was an obvious military service. Very large, impressive military-themed set and an American flag draped casket. At the end of the well-coordinated service, Charlie and his associate turned the casket down the center aisle of the chapel instead of out the side door where they would normally go, where the hearse would normally be. Now we're all standing in honor, and remember I'm on the last row at the last spot, but I'm on the aisle, so they're rolling the casket right past me. We're all standing in honor as the casket rolls by, headed out the front door. It gets to the point Charlie's pushing, and when he gets to me, he just kind of leans over real quick to me from the aisle and says, just ride in the hearse and watch. Then, just as the front of the casket crosses the threshold of the door going outside, Charlie and his associates suddenly stop and step away. Where do you take the flag off the casket, funeral directors? Where do you take it off? At the cemetery. Charlie and his associate backed away from the casket. Two military guys appeared out of nowhere. I hadn't even seen them, and I'm in the last row. They picked the flag up, folded it perfectly in the little triangle. They just moved to the other side of the door, folded the flag up in the little triangle, and the guy on the outside takes the flag, sticks it under his arm, salutes, and leaves. Now the family is remember, during all this, the family is standing almost where I am. And they're right behind the casket and right next to me, and they were looking at each other like, what's happening here? Like, where's he going with my flag? But nobody said a word. I followed them out, got in a hearse with Charlie, and headed to the cemetery. On the way, we talked about a couple of business things, and important stuff like Bama and Arkansas football, important stuff. I also found out a little about the veteran he was burying. He was a World War II veteran, a World War II paratrooper who had been dropped behind enemy lines on D-Day and survived. He was one of those guys who secured the bridges. Maybe things don't even happen if it not had been for people like him. He was a war hero. When he returned from the war, he started a parachuting school. And by the time of his death at age 72, 14 parachuting schools had sprung up all over the country from the first one he had created. It was his life's work. You see, Charlie was a celebrant, Glenda, maybe even before it even had a name, or it was cool to be one. It was a really windy day. The cemetery had giant oak trees all over the place, everywhere, along with these giant spheres and monuments of every description scattered around these beautiful rolling hills at this cemetery. Charlie stopped the hearse up on a ridge about 30 yards or so above where the graveside was set up, kind of below, a little bit down the ridge. Charlie steps out of the hearse, sticks his head back in, and says, "Just stand beside the hearse and watch." Now, I could see further up, the graveside's down there, but I could see further up the ridge this way. From the graveside was a guy with what appeared to be a walkie-talkie. He had a perfect line of sight down to the tent and the graveside to the minister who was in on it. At the perfect moment, I just happened to catch the minister as he kind of nodded his head like this, and it was a serious nod that could be seen by the guy up on the ridge with the walkie-talkie. And the guy with the walkie-talkie appeared to look into that walkie-talkie and say, "Go!" The minister continued the service with just as it appeared to be, he was just appeared to be at the point of saying amen. And when the guy said go, somebody jumped out of an airplane from 14,000 feet with one of those little chutes. You've seen them. Those little square chutes that they control. They come into the 50-yard line of the football game. A military guy with one of those controllable parachutes comes ripping into that cemetery. Now, I'm up above. I'm almost at eye level, and I see this guy before anyone else. Remember, windy, oak trees, giant monuments, and he lands that thing within 30 feet of the corner of that tent. He clipped off his chute, and it takes off, and it wraps around one of those monuments. He reaches back into his pack, puts his dress hat on, reaches back and walks over and hands that flag to the widow. It's one of the most powerful things I've ever seen, and I wasn't even supposed to be there. Less than 30 seconds later, here comes another one. Everybody's so focused on the first guy, nobody sees the second guy, and he almost does hit an oak tree. I could see him from my perspective. He was doing one of those things, trying to keep from running into something on the way down. He lands perfectly on the other corner of the tent, does exactly the same ritual, except he pulls the family Bible out of his pack and walks over and hands it to the son and daughter. You see, folks, that is funeral service. That is who we are. It's what we're about. It's why we do this. Now look, in Southern terms, I'd have to tell you that if you're in this business and that true story doesn't fire you up, your wood's wet. Maybe you need to consider another alternative. Maybe you're in the wrong business. I have never had anything impact me so clearly as that did looking back on it. For me, up until that time, the funeral business had always been about numbers, merchandising, blue ones versus pink ones, casket selection room ideas, and profits. And I was good at it. But looking back now, that was the day that I understood what funeral service was really all about. In my life in this business, I've never left anyone anywhere unhappy or disgruntled. A lot of people said, "You can't keep a job? How come every time I talk to you, you're doing something else?" Possibly before my experience with Charlie, but certainly since then, I have simply tried every day, no matter where the opportunity presented itself, to promote anything that would help this business be just a little better. I would be remiss on this occasion if I did not mention a few important people who I wish were here tonight. My mom, who had semi-heart failure when I left the CPAs, my friend Dick Davis, my friend Roger Savage, who ran Artco Casket just a few miles from here in Lenexa, my partner Alton Duty, my friend Jerry Vaughn, and my stepdad, Harold Proctor, who knew a lot about funeral service. I miss them all every day. And they would have loved this night. Jim and the association, thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for this wonderful honor. Thank you so much.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you all. We're going to adjourn. I want to just recognize up here there's checks representing $1.6 million, and we could not do the things we do. We will provide over 150 scholarships this year. We've given, over the last 8-10 years or so, we've provided over 1,000. And so we can't make education accessible to our future leaders without the support of all of you. So thank you. Have a great convention. Congratulations, Doug.